How do you start a podcast? Great question, me. You start a podcast by literally just finding a hosting platform or service or starting your own and starting. The barrier of entry into this niche is pretty low, which is great. It means anybody can kind of do it. I'm a person that learns best by doing and exploring, but that's also kind of expensive. So I'm hoping to at least bring down that cost of entry for you guys, our audience. People, when they consume our content and they don't actually know who we are, they tend to engage with us simply based on the name, whether they like it or overwhelmingly because they don't like it. The things that make sense for you when you start might not make sense for when you grow. I'm not trying to make this intimidating and say you need to spend all of this money up front. That's why having microphones like these is great, because you can use it just with a laptop and your phone or your webcam or whatever you want. Welcome back to the He's Wrong, She's Right podcast. I'm Andrew, and as you'll notice, Nona is not here. She's actually busy doing her taxes, or at least that's what she wants me to tell you she's doing. Whether she is or not, that's up to you to decide. I'm waiting for her to say something from the other room. No, but that is what she's really doing. So today, because she's busy and we wanted to make sure we follow our content schedule, we were supposed to be recording with a guest, but we're working on a series that I wanted to kind of give an introduction to today of how to start a podcast in 2025. It's not as easy, but it's also easier than what you probably think. So jumping right into it, this is completely unscripted, and I promise you when the bigger episodes come out, when we actually have a lot more detail to go into and talk about, those will be semi-scripted. We'll actually have, bullet points, talking points. And I might even put this together as something that you guys can download. And not by download, I don't mean the video, but like a PDF or something like that. It'll be free, not a big deal. Just something to give you guys kind of a starting point, a point of reference more than just the video, where I can actually go into a little bit more detail into my reasoning for things. So jump right into it. How do you start a podcast? Great question, me. You start a podcast by literally just finding a hosting platform or service or starting your own and starting. Now, that sounds ridiculous, but I'm also not entirely wrong. The barrier of entry into this niche is pretty low, which is great. It means anybody can kind of do it. There are obviously tiers and levels of professionalism and your content, your production quality and things like that, but getting started and learning things and identifying the things that maybe work better for you than what do for our show, or what you don't like about what we do that you would like to change for your show. So I'm a person that learns from doing. I can read all day. I can, write. I can do little exams and theoreticals all day. But as far as actually learning, I'm a person that learns best by doing and exploring. But that's also kind of expensive. So I'm hoping to at least bring down that cost of entry for you guys, our audience, and anybody else that's watching this that might have never seen us before. So again, welcome. And yeah, the first thing that you want to do as you're kind of doing your planning and determining whether or not you're going to do this, on the side, or if you're going to start a company, if you got the money to do that kind of thing, you need to identify kind of what genre you want to be within. We started, I should say, in the comedy aspect, and that's what we really want to do, was kind of the comedy, a little bit of entertainment, pop culture type stuff, but we really wanted it to be like our show. The problem is, for us at least, this may not be your problem, you might be famous, is that people don't know who we are. We have small audiences personally and professionally from other ventures. We have social media followings from both of our businesses, from other podcasting groups and things that we've been a part of over the years. Personally, I was involved with Drinking Bros for a very long time. I know several larger YouTubers that have all kind of lent a hand in telling me what to do. So this is kind of a compilation of that information. So determining, who or what you want your show to be, what genre you want to be in. Are you going to be true crime? Are you going to be comedy? Are you going to be news or something else entirely? From there, you want to come up with a name. Obviously, you want something to be memorable, but most importantly, you want a name that doesn't infringe on somebody else's existing name. This obviously happens all the time, not just in podcasting, but in media, pop culture in general. You have movie A and the same story wants to be adapted by somebody else and they can't. They have to use a different name, or it's a different studio or whatever. Just ensure that you're not infringing on anybody else's trademark or copyright. You can go to usp.gov. And from there, you can actually do a search to see if people have something existing. You can also just simply go to YouTube or go to Spotify or whatever platform you prefer for consuming podcasts and just search it up. Throw in, if you have a name like ours, He's Wrong, She's Right. Throw in just He's Wrong. Throw in She's Right. See what comes up with just those two combinations. Throw the whole thing in, see what comes up. And from there, you can determine, okay, A, nobody's using this name, or at least not that name in that order. Getting kind of nitpicky here, but trust me, it matters. We're dealing with it right now ourselves. So ensuring that you have a name that both is searchable and that people will remember. You don't want to have something so obscure that you're always explaining to people how to spell it. You don't want it to be something that people can't just rattle off to their friends in the car, or it's difficult to search for because you're using strange characters or typos or things like that in order to do it. And that kind of also goes to any other form of business. There are some people that do find success with all these kind of vague or, dropping your consonants or dropping your vowels or whatever, and just making the name whatever else fits in there. Just make sure that you have something that people will remember, people can search for, and that people like. One of the great things about our name, He's Wrong, She's Right, is that it's actually a talking point. People, when they consume our content and they don't actually know who we are, they tend to engage with us simply based on the name, whether they like it or overwhelmingly because they don't like it and they think that the show is something that it really isn't. Like, oh, of course, He's Wrong, She's Right would have that comment or say something like that. Of course they would have that opinion. When they're taking a clip that we intentionally took out of context without the full video behind it. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into that kind of stuff. Some people call it clickbait, and to some degree it is. Veritasium did a good video years ago about why clickbait is necessary. People aren't going to consume your content if your thumbnail and title is boring. They're just going to scroll right by it, if they even see it all. If the algorithm doesn't pick it up, it doesn't matter anyways. But if the algorithm does pick it up and it's not interesting to people, they're just going to scroll right past it, and you're just not going to build an audience. So that's something to think about. Obviously, don't be super sensational with it. Make sure that you toe the line of the platforms, because they, trust me, another topic for another day. So yeah, coming up with a name, coming up with your genre, figuring out how you plan to grow and develop your audience and who your audience is. For us, we started off trying to make it just our show. I didn't want to bring guests in too early. One, because we didn't have great equipment. And two, because I didn't want their impression of us to be that we are unprofessional, don't have the greatest equipment, things like that. However, a lot of times they don't really care. If you get a YouTuber or an influencer or maybe a famous neighbor or something like that, or somebody who has success near you, somebody who's got a really great business in your hometown and you want to bring them on, they might not care, because they might not understand that aspect of media, and they might just be happy to be there and entertained to come on your show and happy that you would even think to invite them. That is a piece of advice that I got from John Cardillo, kind of laid on into the show. So I want to make sure I pass that on to you guys. It has done well for us because people are looking for our guests. Nobody's looking for Andrew Lemacks' podcast. Nobody's looking for Nona Phelps' podcast. They're looking for Lemacks Media, my company. They're looking for Nona Phelps' insurance agent, but they're not looking for us for podcasting unless they're already our friends. So major thing to consider there, identifying people that you might be able to bring on. First 5-10 episodes, learning curves and stuff like that, you might not want to bring somebody on. But once you kind of hit your stride, it might be something to definitely consider. It's easy these days to get in touch with people, and because you can do things remote, there's a great opportunity there to find people that you admire or people that you look up to, reach out to them on Twitter or Instagram or wherever else, and just say, hey, I'd like to have you as a guest on my show. Would you have any interest? Sometimes they might want you to pay for the appearance. Whether or not you want to do that, that's up to you. Other times they might just be happy to be there. I would also consider ensuring that when you invite them on, that you clearly define things like how the duration of your show, that is, how long it's going to be, what it's about, and send them some of your past content, especially if you've already had guests and you can say, hey, we had this person on or we had this person on. I know you guys are kind of connected in some way, shape, or form. That way it gives them the ability to see how you connect with people like them, and they can take that and say, okay, these people seem to have something that, could be mutually beneficial for us. Beyond that, I would say, again, if you're going the business route like we did, where we came right out the gate with our website, our shop, all of our channels and platforms and social media, came right out of the gate with everything. I had already secured everything. I had already developed the website, and I know a lot of people aren't going to go through those hoops. That's my profession. That's my niche. So I was able to bring that to the table right out the gate and not something that we had to bring in after the fact. But it might be worth your while once you do identify that name and all that to secure your domain if you can. I would stay away from the .podcast and all those other, what they're called TLDs, top level domains. Stay away from the .podcast, the .whatever. Try and get the .com. If it has to be something, my podcast name, podcast.com, go that way. Don't do the .podcast. You can do that secondary. That can be another domain that you own to ensure that you secure as many as you want. It's not really a thing that people really need to do anymore. You're not going to really have to worry as much about domain squatting as you did back in the day. But yeah, so he'swrong.com is obviously our website. That's our domain that we own. It's also what we use for our email and everything else. Social media channels, the one that we did run into an issue with, that was X. And that's not because somebody else had already secured the name. It's because they have a character limit. So I had to change up the name for X only, which is he's wrong, she's not. So everything else, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, Reddit, everything is he's wrong, she's right, other than X. So something to consider. If it doesn't matter for your name, or if you can't really tweak the words or whatever, it might not be a big deal. Or you can go with an acronym or initialism. We have HWSR is what we use for our hashtag, and that's kind of what we try and label our episodes as. Obviously, this will probably be the basics of starting a podcast in 2025 -HWSR episode, or EP, whatever the episode number is, which I believe this would be 130. So structuring things like that, identifying all those things early on will help you out a lot to make sure that you don't have a headache after you start your show and then say, oh, crap, those social media accounts are already taken. Now, am I going to go pay somebody for them? Am I going to ask them to give it to me? They're probably not going to do that. You're probably not rich. You're probably like me. You're probably just starting out. You don't have a lot of money. So make sure you start from the ground up with the ability to secure all of your intellectual property from the outstart. So moving on from that, equipment. Wow. A lot of people will say, and I have said this before previously, just start. There are a lot of things that you can use and utilize to record yourself or yourself and your co-hosts that don't require any additional money. Something you can do, it might not be super favorable in some platforms. Just use your phone. Your phone probably has a great camera. Your phone probably has a great microphone, and you can use it as a webcam for a lot of different devices. I don't want to really get into the weeds on that because I don't know what phone you have, but a simple Google search, you'll find different apps for your phone to be able to connect to a PC or a laptop or Mac or whatever you have and utilize as a webcam. So if you have a little tripod or something that you can mount it on, now you've got probably a device that has a better camera than something you can buy off the shelf for not a lot of money. As far as like high dynamic range, color, and even the microphones. A lot of times devices these days have the ability to isolate sound and, cancel out echoes and things like that in a room. Obviously, it's something that's going to change. It's going to depend on the space that you're in. It's going to depend on if you've invested in soundproofing. It's going to depend on if you have something like hardwood floors like we do. We have a lot of corners and things like that in here, so having a good microphone was very critical to us. And the best thing about these microphones specifically is that these are actually kind of a dual purpose microphone. These microphones, these Rode PodMic USB. So Rode has two different versions of this microphone. They have an XLR only version. Right now I'm using XLR. And then they have this one, which is USB and XLR. And if I'll hold this up, and I'll have links to all this for you guys to check out. But as you can see here, you have this USB Type-C port right here. You have a headphone jack right here, and then you have the XLR port. The sliders for your headphone audio. So if you do have guests, that's another thing. So sticking right with the microphones and everything like that is your headphones or whatever you're using for your audio. Obviously, you don't want your guests echoing within your content, but you want to be able to hear them. You want them to be able to hear you. The microphones or the headphones that we use, that is, are the Rode NTH 100s. And these actually come with, first of all, they actually have the ability to switch whether or not they're plugged in to the left or right side. So it kind of just pushes in there, twists to the side. You can do it on either side. So for comfort reasons, things like that. But then it also has an adapter so that you can plug this twists off right here. And if I wanted to, I can plug this right into my microphone. That's USB only. It does not work over XLR, but you can plug that in there. For our purposes, because we're using a deck, which you can see right here in the video, we actually have the ports back here on the back for monitoring audio. So with that adapter on there, I would plug it into here, and then I would be able to hear through there. So things like that to consider. All of our equipment has multiple ways that we can use and utilize it. The nice thing about having the USB versions of these microphones is that if we wanted to take the equipment somewhere, take just a laptop, because we use webcams to record, and I'll get to that in a second. But if I didn't want to have to take the deck with me, I can just take the microphones. I can take, just these stands. I can take these arms. These just use a twist clamp at the base right here, and the arm itself sticks into it. So we can take the microphones with us, and they can just plug into your laptop. Or if you have an adapter, like a Thunderbolt adapter or USB adapter, something like that, where you have multiple ports, you can plug in all of your microphones, and then you can use Rode or whatever else. It doesn't have to be Rode. I'm just using that example because that is what we use. So I can take this on the road, literally. I can take this all on the road, and I can utilize it without bringing the deck with us, without bringing these big, heavy XLR cables with us everywhere. The microphones themselves do come with a USB-C cable. They do not come with the XLR cable. Those are actually kind of pricey. So we have both. We have the XLR cables and we have the USB cables because they come with it, and we have 4 of the same microphone. That way, we always have a microphone for the guests. We can do ambient sound. We do have some live shows coming up, so we'll be able to set up a microphone for somebody in the audience to talk to us and be able to capture that as well. So sticking with the audio stuff here real quick, the deck itself. We have the Rodecaster Pro 2. Don't have to go with this. I went with this for a couple different reasons. For one, I was at Micro Center and they just happened to have it on the shelf, and I knew that it went well with the equipment, the existing equipment that we have. One of the nice features about this one specifically is that it does have 4 XLR ports and 4 headphone jacks. So if we were in a live environment and we were unable to hear our guests, even on the set of the show, we could all put on headphones and we could talk amongst each other without the audience sound drowning out our conversation. We can also then adjust our microphones to make sure that they're only picking up the sound from each individual speaker and not the ambient sound from the room or the audience or wherever we are. Something like that. Those are things to consider. It also has the soundboard and audio effects. That's what these buttons are right here. So I can push one of these. For example, I have an applause button. And I can turn it back off. So you can program these to do several different things. If you have sound effects, if you have segments that you have introductions that you repeat. For example, I know people have segments where they talk about crime or this or that, and they have a pre-recorded voiceover or sound effect or things like that they can use to introduce that segment of the show. Couple that with a graphic. You can also do this in post. Obviously, we do most of this stuff in post. The only thing that we really do on set is capture audio and video. Everything else is done in post. Moving on then. Again, guys, this is just a really, really rough overview. We are going to have a lot more content that's going to come out. I do have planned like a 2 to 3 part series to explain a little bit more of the decision making, because this is not the equipment that we started with. The equipment we started with was not great. I had an Amazon, Amazon's Choice or whatever their knockoff cheap stuff is, or Amazon Basics, I think is what it is. Yeah. microphone, and it was okay for Zoom meetings, but it's not okay for this kind of audio. It was okay to get started because it gave me a baseline to learn from. I'm kind of an audiophile, so I listen back to that audio and I'm like, yeah, it's not really great. The other disadvantage to something like that and not having a high quality microphone is that if my dogs are walking around or barking or something like that, I'm not really going to be able to isolate the sound. Sure, there are ways that you can do that with like NVIDIA Broadcast with artificial intelligence and things like that. But now you're talking about the horsepower of your computer that you're using to record with, or you might already have something like a DSLR or point and shoot, or using your phone, for example, to record, and you're not going to be able to sound isolate. You're not going to be able to extract the dog barking or the doorbell ringing or whatever else from your audio. So something to keep in mind for that decision-making process. Obviously, once again, your environment's going to be different than ours. The things that make sense for you might not make sense for us. The things that make sense for you starting might not make sense for you. The things that make sense for you when you start might not make sense for when you grow. This deck as well, Rode does have a smaller solution for, I think it's the Rodecaster Duo, for 2 microphones and 2 headphones. We got this one because I knew we were investing into the show, and I knew we were going to be having guests both virtually and in person. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't have the 2-person one and this one. That being said, Rode has since introduced a video production version of this that also has several microphone inputs, webcam inputs, or DSLR inputs, whatever the case might be. So you can capture and pass through video and audio to a device, or you can record on deck. This deck has the ability to record audio individual channels. So if I needed to record my microphone and everybody else's microphone separately and then make adjustments in post, I could. Rather than doing that though, we use OBS. So this actually is just a mixer in this setup. And then I do all the audio capture as dual channel in OBS itself, which is a free software. You can download it. Anybody can use it. It's a great solution. There are others. There's definitely a lot of different paid solutions and things like that. But I think this is the best, both because it's supported and kind of everybody uses it, but it's free. There's a lot of extensions and add-ons and things that you can use to make this what you want it to be. If I wanted to, I could do our overlay. I could do our bottom thirds on here. I can change scenes. And there are some things, some like streaming devices where you can actually set up hotkeys and toggle between scenes or do things like that. Rather than doing that though, when we do have remote guests and going into the future, we have a plugin that we're using that will actually capture the video from each individual source. It's literally called Source Record. So if I'm recording a guest segment and it's myself in half the screen and then my guest in the other half the screen, what it'll do is it'll record that as the main video. And then it'll also record my video by itself and my guest's video by itself. So in post, I can have the show, make the introduction. Then when the guest is telling a really funny story, I can flip to them. And then we start laughing, I can flip back to us. And I can do that all because I have multiple video files that I can add in layers. Right now, the way that we do it would either require us pushing a bunch of buttons, using the mouse the entire time. And it's kind of tedious. You don't want to sit there poking a bunch of stuff, especially if you don't have a production crew behind the scenes that can do that for you. So it's something to consider. That plugin is also free. It's available right from OBS's website. It's maintained by somebody that's highly involved in OBS development. So yeah, it's great. It's really easy to use. There's video tutorials on how to use it. Super simple. You can have video graphics and things like that playing. You can capture desktop video. You can capture anything on your screen. You can capture video games if you're a gamer. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this. You can even capture like other video files. So we did for a Halloween stream, we had like a lightning storm background. We had the whole Halloween frame and all that good stuff. It's pretty cool. We were capturing the trick-or-treaters that would come up. We'd ask them some questions, do the whole trick-or-treat thing, throw them some candy. It's a good time. So it's very simple, very lightweight. We recorded initially using my old PC. Now we use a Minis Forum PC, just a little mini PC. Again, I'll have the links to all this stuff down below for you guys. When I was investing in the show after we did kind of our initial 50 or so episodes, I knew what I wanted and I knew where I wanted to put our money. So all the pieces of equipment that we have are things that I know we can use into the future, but they're also things that we had the budget to purchase at the time. So I'm not trying to make this intimidating and say you need to spend all of this money up front. That's why having microphones like these are great, because you can use it just with a laptop and your phone or your webcam or whatever you want. Or you might be a person that just wants to do an audio-only show. Moving on then from there, again, we've got the minis forum. We've talked about the deck. We've talked about the microphones. We've talked about the headphones. We've talked about some of the cords and cables and all that good stuff. Now let's talk about video. For video, we are actually using webcams. Whether that's shocking to you or not, these are actually just webcams that you can buy off the shelf. They probably have them at Best Buy, wherever else. They do have some downfalls, some things like high dynamic range and things like that. It's not really bad right now because these windows are, the sun's kind of on the other side of the house now. But when we're recording earlier in the mornings and the sun is kind of behind us, the glare does kind of interfere if I'm leaning kind of like in front of a window and I move. They don't really adjust really well all the time. And then, of course, you're dealing with the sun itself. It could go behind the clouds and the camera has to adjust. And it's not the greatest. They work well for what we do and what we use them for. And we'll probably use them for a while into the future because they're great overall. They're just not great in low light, and they're not as good with high dynamic range as I would hope. And to tell you what they are, they're Logitech Brio 4K. You can buy them off Amazon. I'll include links down below. They're just USB webcams, and we have a monopod that has a bar that goes across it and two cameras are on there. We are actually changing the setup. Some of you have been here before will probably notice that this table came back. We're going to kind of try and do a little thing so Nona and I can sit and face each other without turning our heads and not looking at the camera, where we'll actually be kind of offset. We were supposed to record today. And I'll be off to one side, she'll be off to the other. We can look at each other while still maintaining eye contact with the camera, and we'll still have the monitor. One of the things that we also did initially is I used my laptop to remote into my desktop PC. So I didn't have to bring keyboard and mouse. I could do any sort of research that I might need to do, have my laptop here in front of me, control the monitor of the show. That's really getting deep into the weeds, and I know a lot of people aren't going to have multiple computers. So I would just say, if you have a laptop that's been produced within the last 4 to 5 years, especially if it has some sort of dedicated graphics card, I wouldn't rely too much on anything like a Chromebook. But if you have, $500 to $750 laptop that you bought within the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, it's probably going to be pretty good to capture. You also don't need to record in 4K. Most people aren't going to consume your content in video format, and a lot of them that do are probably going to be watching on their phone or another small form factor device, and they're not really going to be able to tell the difference in the video size and video quality. Getting in the weeds on video quality. That's its own thing. We're going to have a whole video about that, talking about lighting, why we chose the lights that we have. We've changed lights multiple different times. You can see 2 of them reflected back here behind me off the fireplace. Those are they're actually bigger LED panels. Then we have 2 smaller key light panels, or they're not really smaller, they're 16-inch, that point down at us. These that you see reflecting, those are intended to bounce light off the walls and back onto us to even out the lighting in the room. Because there are overhead can lights in here, but there's not really a lot of other light other than the sun, and we didn't want a lot of fluctuation. We wanted to basically level out the lighting in the room and then let the camera adjust to what we give it rather than the outside lighting. With that all being said, I do want to introduce the opportunity for people to leave a comment, let us know what you might be interested in us doing a deeper dive on. As I said, we are going to have scripted segments. Nona will be back on that show to be able to talk about what she does and doesn't like, because there are some things that you have to consider as well with your crew, if you have one, or with your co-hosts, if you have multiple, your guests, things like that. So we have 4 of these arms, but we only have 2 of these stands. So there's some configurations and things where it'd be nice to have 4 of each. There are some, when we've had guests, that both the guests sit in front of us, rather than having this arm obscure people, we have the smaller stands so that you're getting the person in the view of the camera rather than this big clunky. It's not clunky. It's actually nice. It's kind of expensive too. You don't have to go You don't have to go for this thing right here. You can go a little bit cheaper. But we wanted to stay within one ecosystem. I wanted all my warranties to be with one company, but I understand that not everybody can do that. Not everybody wants to do that. But let us know what you might be interested in. There are a lot of things that we can get into as well with editing, with formats, and all of that will come in the future episodes. So look forward to that. Go ahead, guys, make sure you subscribe and let us know if there's anything else you'd like to see. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.